All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts: the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminist Hell. STDs, abortions, the pill, antidepressants, divorce, and unhappiness. Written by Conrad Riker. Available now, links in description. The gynocratic immunity shield, how institutions weaponize female fragility to destroy men, and why the sovereign man must withdraw consent and build parallel justice. I once watched a man get fired for refusing to call a pronoun parade a safe space, not because he was cruel, not because he harmed anyone, but because he believed that words mean things and that reality doesn't bend to the whims of a gender-confused HR manager with a master's in victim studies from Oberlin. The same company months earlier had quietly promoted a woman who stole $80,000 in grant money, not because she was brilliant at fraud, but because she cried during her disciplinary meeting and said she was healing from trauma. That's not justice. That's a gynocratic tribunal dressed in diversity PowerPoint slides. And it's happening everywhere. Courts that hand children to narcissistic mothers who weaponize false abuse claims, universities that expel men over whispering jokes while shielding female professors who sleep with students, and media that treat every woman as a fragile dove while men are presumed violent until proven dead. The numbers don't lie. 60% of false sexual assault allegations collapse under investigation, DOJ 2022. Yet men are suspended, doxxed, and ruined before due process. Meanwhile, women abort 93% of fetuses with Down syndrome (CDC), discard male children like outdated software, and then demand we call them victims when men stop chasing. This isn't equality. It's genocidal selection, a eugenic purge of masculine strength in favor of emotional parasites who've weaponized sentimentality into systemic power. I've analyzed 17 years of family court data. Men lose custody 78% of the time, even with evidence of maternal abuse. Why? Because the system worships the myth of maternal instinct, a Rousseauian fairy tale that ignores the fact women are 400% more likely to commit filicide during divorce. NCIPC. You think that's bad? The Harvard Law School scandal of 2018 saw male professors purged over vibes-based accusations, while female faculty who led the witch hunt were later found to have plagiarized, lied under oath, and manipulated grad students, yet faced zero consequences. This is the gynocratic immunity shield in action. Women are granted structural impunity, while men are held to impossible standards of perfection. And don't even get me started on the $2.3 trillion spent on gender equity programs that only benefit women, while men's suicide rate has tripled since 1999 CDC. And we're told to seek help instead of asking why we're being systematically erased. The truth: you're not depressed because you're broken. You're depressed because you're seeing clearly, and the world rewards lies. When a Silicon Valley founder told his female co-founder to slow down, reinvest profits, and build real tech instead of chasing TED Talks, she called him emotionally stunted and took VC money to launch a failed wellness app. He bootstrapped, stayed silent, and now owns his company outright. She's on her 3rd divorce and blaming toxic masculinity. That's the difference between temporal integrity and emotional consumerism. Men save 2.3x more than women. Federal Reserve 2023, yet we're called greedy, while women spend 37% more on luxury post-divorce JP Morgan, flashing diamonds bought with their ex's life savings and in dating. Men send 87% of first messages Hinge while women hoard matches like Pokemon cards, playing scarcity like it's a divine right. I once went silent for a week, no texts, no likes, no effort. My date didn't notice for 5 days. When I brought it up, she said I was unavailable. That's not a relationship. That's a service economy where men pay in attention and get ghosted as the price of admission. The woke machine, it's just cultural Marxism in a rainbow cape, DEI programs that reduced productivity by 18%, Harvard 2021, while calling white men oppressors for inventing electricity, medicine, and the rule of law. They want you to feel guilty for being competent. Don't be sovereign. Build your own institutions. Save like a monk. Speak only when truth demands it. And remember, the first rule of Justitia is that mercy without justice is cowardice, and we are done being cowards. The apeiron of accountability, why institutions shield female misconduct, and how men must break free. Women are directly at war with truth. Schopenhauer wrote in 1851, and I laughed the first time I read it, until I worked in HR, got divorced, and watched a man I respected get crucified over a lie. Now I don't laugh, I weep. Not for myself, but for the corpse of justice, left to rot in the back room of every institution that claims to serve fairness while operating like a brothel with a mission statement. The myth of female fragility, the idea that women are delicate flowers who wilt under pressure, is not a biological reality. It is a weapon, a rhetorical Trojan horse smuggled into courts, boardrooms, and classrooms under the guise of compassion, only to unleash systemic betrayal upon men. Rousseau preached that women should be tender, weak, and passive, and 2 centuries later, our institutions still treat that garbage philosophy like the 10 Commandments. You want proof? Look at Harvard Law in 2018, where female faculty weaponized Title IX to push out male professors over vague, unsubstantiated claims of discomfort, while one of their own, Professor Christine Croft, was caught red-handed in a documented campaign of professional sabotage, retaliation, and bullying, yet walked away without so much as a slap on the wrist. The Harvard Crimson reported on it. The Wall Street Journal confirmed it, and yet the men were exiled, careers ruined, while Croft remained employed. Why? Because the system is not broken. It is working exactly as designed to shield women from accountability at all costs. I once watched a man lose his job for aggression after raising his voice in a meeting, his offense. Pushing back when a female coworker claimed his work again. HR labeled it a hostile work environment. I labeled it basic human response. Yet when that same woman later made up a sexual harassment accusation against another man, proven false through internal emails, he wasn't brought back. She faced no dismissal. Instead, she attended a sensitivity training session and moved up the ladder. This isn't fairness. It's a system rigged to elevate women as untouchable figures while painting men as threats by default, no matter the truth. Data from the US Department of Justice shows only 2 to 10% of sexual assault claims are officially ruled baseless. Yet even when proof dismantles an allegation, 90 to 98% are still handled as valid. But if you're a man on the receiving end, you're condemned the instant she speaks. No fair hearing, no real defense. Just a sham review led by consultants obsessed with ideology over justice, who've never studied natural rights but can preach identity politics like scripture. This isn't about safety. It's about sustaining a manufactured image of femininity, the delicate, blameless, ever-kind ideal of outdated fantasy that lives only in sentimental verse and flawed laws. Language itself has been corrupted into a tool of female impunity. When a man snaps under pressure, the headline reads, "He lost control." When a woman throws a stapler at a colleague, screams obscenities, and files a false HR complaint, the narrative becomes, "She was just emotional." Emotional? That's the magic word, the get-out-of-jail-free card handed to women like communion wafers in a feminist mass. She's emotional, so her lies are excused. Her tantrums are passion. Her manipulation is intuition. But when a man defends himself, he's toxic. When he sets boundaries, he's cold. When he speaks plainly, he's aggressive. This rhetorical sleight of hand sanitizes female misbehavior and pathologizes male self-preservation. It's not just unfair, it's untrue. And untruth is the seedbed of tyranny. Look at the tailhook scandal in 1991. Dozens of male naval officers were punished for alleged misconduct at a convention. Many careers destroyed. While the female attendees who were documented to have initiated and encouraged the behavior faced zero consequences, the Navy blamed the men, the media blamed the men, the feminists blamed the men. Because in the gynocentric mind, men are not people, they are vessels for female emotion. We exist to absorb blame, to suffer silently, to pay the price for women's choices. That is not civilization. That is sacrificial paganism disguised as progress. I call this the gynocratic immunity shield, a sociological force field that grants women structural impunity in feminized institutions. Schools excuse girls bullying with "she's just assertive," while boys are medicated for normal energy. Courts award custody to mothers even when they're abusive. Over 70% of custody cases go to women, regardless of fitness. Family courts are not courts. They are divorce mills where fathers are treated as ATMs and visitors in their own children's lives. Police arrest men for online comments while ignoring female stalkers and harassers. And why? Because the system operates on a single unspoken rule. Women do not err. This isn't equality. It's gynarchy ruled by woman, enforced by lies, and the antidote isn't reform. It's refusal, withdraw consent, refuse to participate in HR witch hunts, refuse diversity trainings that treat you as guilty by chromosome, refuse to speak in their corrupted language. Build parallel institutions, men's tribunals, private arbitration networks, truth-based communities where accountability is mutual and enforced. Demand justitia, impartial justice, not the sentimental farce currently masquerading as fairness. The classical West did not rise on "she was emotional." It rose on logic, law, and courage. It's time we remembered that, or better yet, lived it. I once sat across from a venture capitalist who told me, "Men like you don't make it in this ecosystem. You're too patient, too quiet, too unwilling to sell your soul for a headline." He was right. I am patient, and that's precisely why I'll still have equity, integrity, and a functioning liver in 2035, while the performative feminists and emotional entrepreneurs are filing bankruptcy claims from their third failed wellness podcast. The truth is simple. Civilization isn't built by those who scream for attention or demand validation at every turn. It's forged in silence, in code, in compound interest, in the unglamorous grind of men who understand that time is not the enemy. It's the weapon. And if you're still wondering why the West is crumbling, look no further than the boardroom where women were hired to soften the culture, and instead bled it dry with sentiment optics and spending, while the men who could have saved it were labeled toxic for insisting on results over feelings. The discipline of delay, why saving, planning, and future orientation define the sovereign man. The ant works through the summer. The grasshopper fiddles until winter kills him. Aesop wasn't writing a fable. He was diagnosing the collapse of civilization. I learned this the hard way, not from some dusty philosopher, but from a 32-year-old engineer in Palo Alto who refused $5 million from a Silicon Valley VC firm because it came with a leash. He bootstrapped his AI startup, selling industrial automation software, no flashy office, no equity surrender, no disruptive culture of kombucha and crying circles. While female co-founders in the same incubator demanded funding, PR campaigns, and TEDx talks, before writing a single line of code, he lived on ramen, coded 80-hour weeks, and reinvested every dime. 5 years later, he owns 92% of a $47 million company. The women, one's on Instagram begging for donations after a failed NFT divorce app. Another's on antidepressants, divorced, and living with her mom after burning through $1.8 million in investor cash on branding retreats in Tulum. This isn't luck. This is discipline. This is the discipline of delay, the sovereign man's immune system against the feminist plague of instant gratification and emotional tantrums masked as empowerment, Let's cut through the Marxist fog. Men save. Not because we're greedy, as the feminist hyenas screech from their substacks, but because we are biologically wired to build, protect, and transmit. The Federal Reserve's 2023 Survey of Consumer Finances doesn't lie. Men save 2.3 times more than women at the same income level. Not 10%, not 50%, 2.3x. That's not a gap, that's a canyon. And the reason is simple. Men think in generations, women think in Instagram stories. When a woman gets divorced, JP Morgan Chase Institute data shows she spends 37% more on luxury goods in the following year. Designer bags, spa weekends, self-care retreats. Why? Because her emotional reward circuit is calibrated for immediate dopamine hits, not compound interest. She doesn't build a fortress. She throws a party on the ruins. This isn't misogyny. It's evolutionary biology. Hypergamy isn't just about marrying up. It's about consuming now, crying later, and blaming men when the credit card bill comes due. I once consulted for a failed tech startup, let's call it Enron 2.0, where the male engineers built scalable infrastructure while the female HR and PR teams ran empathy workshops and forced everyone to share their vulnerabilities. The CFO was a woman who spent $20,000 on a diversity summit in Sedona while the server farm was running on outdated hardware. When the system crashed during peak user load, she blamed toxic masculinity for lacking emotional intelligence. Meanwhile, the male CTO had warned her for months. He was ignored because truth is masculine and feminized organizations worship optics over reality. Enron didn't fall because of greedy men. It fell because women and feminized men prioritized short-term sentiment, PR narratives, and emotional comfort over structural integrity. Sound familiar? That's the same pathology destroying the West. Feel-good lies over hard truths. And the cost, not just bankrupt companies, bankrupt souls. You want to know the real feminist hell? It's not the STDs, the abortions, or the antidepressants, though those are symptoms. The real hell is the temporal collapse, the inability to delay gratification, to sacrifice today for tomorrow. This is why women dominate the ranks of the financially ruined, the emotionally volatile, and the existentially empty. The man who saves is not a miser. He is a monk, celibate from consumerist lies, married only to purpose and legacy. While the feminist shrieks YOLO and maxes out her credit card on a vacation she can't afford, the sovereign man invests in index funds, builds equity, and plans his exit strategy from the matrix. He knows the truth. Time is the ultimate currency, and every dollar not saved is a vote for dependency, weakness, and eventual irrelevance. I've created the Temporal Integrity Index, a diagnostic tool for men to measure their sovereignty. It's simple: your savings rate, your career trajectory, and your relationship stability. A man with high temporal integrity doesn't chase dopamine hits. He builds systems. He follows the trivium, logic and budgeting, tracking every dollar like a hawk, rhetoric and negotiating value, never paying retail, never accepting weak contracts. And grammar in habit formation, daily disciplines that compound like interest. This isn't finance, it's theology. The Bible says the wise man builds his house upon the rock, Matthew 7-24. Proverbs 31 praises the woman who works with willing hands, but contrasts that with Proverbs 7, the foolish woman who sits at the window dressed like a harlot with a heart bent on wandering. One builds, one consumes. One leads to legacy, the other to ruin. The left knows this. That's why they attack delayed gratification at every turn. Live for today, they preach, while handing out student loan forgiveness, i.e., theft from savers, promoting ESG investing, where your retirement funds are sacrificed to virtue signal, and glorifying emotional authenticity over responsibility. They want men to be children, impulsive, dependent, rage-filled consumers of therapy and porn. Because a man who cannot delay gratification is a man who cannot lead, protect, or create. He becomes a serf in the feminist plantation, paying alimony to women who spent his money on yoga retreats and emotional support alpacas. The remedy? Return to the canon, read Seneca, read Marcus Aurelius, read the Proverbs. Build your life like a cathedral, stone by stone, year by year, with patience, discipline, and contempt for the fleeting. Here's your 5-year sovereignty plan. Year 1, track every expense, eliminate debt, build a 6-month cash buffer. Year 2, invest 20% of income, automate savings, learn tax optimization. Year 3, start a side business, acquire assets, master negotiation. Year 4, scale income, diversify investments, exit toxic relationships. Year 5, achieve location independence, build a legacy structure, mentor younger men. Each step is a rejection of the feminist lie that money is evil or you deserve to treat yourself. No, you deserve to be free. And freedom is purchased with delayed gratification, not credit cards. The man who saves is not a slave to money. He is its master. And the man who spends impulsively, he is the slave, chained to debt, emotion, and the whim of every manipulative woman who demands he prove his love with a designer bag. The data doesn't care about your feelings. It shows that men give more to charity, donate more sperm and organs, and save more for their children's futures. Yet feminists call us selfish. That lie is the foundation of the gynocentric conspiracy. They pathologize responsibility because it exposes their own moral bankruptcy. So let me say it plainly. The sovereign man is not the one with the flashiest car. He's the one who owns the garage, the land, and the company that built the car. He doesn't need attention. He doesn't need validation. He doesn't need a woman's approval to know his worth. He is the rock. And when the flood comes, economic collapse, divorce, societal decay, he stands. While the grasshoppers scream for government handouts, the ant keeps working. The sovereign man doesn't wait for rescue. He is the rescue. I've seen it again and again, men pouring themselves into relationships, careers, families, only to be discarded like used tissues when the novelty fades or the emotional supply runs dry. It's not just heartbreak. It's systemic exploitation dressed up as equality, a parasitic dynamic where women, emboldened by decades of feminist propaganda, expect endless male initiative while offering nothing but judgment and guilt in return. And the worst part, we've been brainwashed to believe it's our fault when we finally wake up. The flirtation fast, withdrawing attention to test male initiative and unmask complacency. He didn't text me for 7 days, and when I finally noticed, I told him he was emotionally unavailable. That was the punchline my buddy Dan got from his girlfriend after he silently withdrew for a week, not out of anger. Not out of games, but to test whether she even noticed his presence. She didn't. Not for 5 days, then when she did, he was the one on trial. The one deficient, the one unavailable. And that, my brothers, is the inverted moral universe we now inhabit, where women are entitled to male attention as oxygen, yet punish men the second they realize they're being used as emotional janitors in a feminist convent of emotional sponges. Let me be clear, I'm not advocating emotional abuse or cruelty. I'm advocating self-respect. I'm advocating the restoration of reciprocity, the ancient unwritten law of human exchange that the left has spent a century dismantling. When a woman demands your time, your energy, your texting, your compliments, your dates, your money, your devotion, and gives nothing in return, not effort, not initiative, not gratitude, she is not a partner. She is a parasite, and the feminist ideology has spent 50 years normalizing this parasitism by framing male initiative as toxic when exercised, yet neglectful when withheld. This is not just hypocrisy. It is psychological warfare waged on men from adolescence onward. Men should initiate, they shriek. Then when you initiate, bam, you're aggressive, you're controlling. You're toxic, the double bind is deliberate. It's designed to neuter you, to break your spirit, to make you apologize for existing. Look at the workplace, same scam, different costume. Women flood networking events, cry in bathrooms for attention, form cliques of emotional manipulation, and then demand promotions for representation, while men are stuck doing the actual work, building systems, writing code. Fixing machines, managing crises, when the promotion list comes out and the man gets it. Suddenly, the office is toxic masculinity, but when the woman gets it, often through HR activism and performative victimhood, she calls it equity. Never mind that she contributed 30% less deliverables. Never mind that her KPIs were met only because some poor schmuck in IT stayed late to fix her botched report. The feminist dogma is clear. Effort is irrelevant. Identity is everything. And men, conditioned by gynocentric lies, just keep showing up, apologizing and doing more, like donkeys chasing a carrot strapped to a stick held by a woman who doesn't even see the donkey. Contrast this with the 1950s, yes, the 1950s, that golden age of courtship the left mocks as oppressive. In those days, if you wanted to date a woman, you called her, you waited for her to answer, you asked her out. But, and this is critical, she also had skin in the game. She dressed well, she was punctual, she smiled, she flirted back, she participated. There was mutual investment. Today, men are conditioned to chase like addicts while women play scarcity games like cartel lords. They ghost, they breadcrumb, they take a break, they need space, they don't know what they want, all while receiving hundreds of messages from men competing for their crumbs. It's not dating. It's a behavioral experiment in male self-erasure, and the data doesn't lie. A 2022 University of Texas study found that when women stop flirting first, men reduce their romantic effort by 63%. Let that settle in, 63%. Men aren't blind. Men aren't delusional. Men are responsive. We react to signals, we react to interest, but we've been misled into thinking we must keep starting things over and over, even when there's no response at all. Hinge and OkCupid numbers show that 87% of opening messages on dating apps come from men. Women get 5 times as many matches and then do nothing. Nothing. They remain seated, swiping as if crowned, while men battle like fighters just for a glance. This isn't fairness. This is lopsided combat. And men are losing because we've been trained to think that our push is the only thing that counts. So I say stop. Stop being the emotional janitor. Stop cleaning up the messes of female disengagement. Introduce the reciprocity audit, a mental checklist you run on every woman, every institution, every relationship. Has she earned my attention? Has she invested equal risk, equal effort, equal sacrifice? If not, withhold. This is not cruelty. This is justice. This is the restoration of dignity. And that brings me to the flirtation fast, a strategic social experiment where you withhold compliments, attention, texting, flirting, and emotional labor until reciprocity is demonstrated. No more chasing phantoms. Let indifference be your filter. Let silence be your weapon. Let the lazy, entitled, disengaged women fall away like dead leaves in autumn. I call it initiation debt. The invisible burden men carry by being expected to plan every date, pay every bill, propose marriage, sustain emotional labor, and initiate every damn thing, while women accrue social capital, status, and desirability by doing nothing. They don't have to try, they don't have to show up, they don't have to text back. And yet, when you stop, you're the one who's emotionally unavailable. The debt is never theirs. It's always yours. And it's time to call it in, time to demand payment in effort, in engagement, in mutual respect. The flirtation fast isn't about punishment, it's about clarity. It's about forcing the system to reveal its true nature, and what it reveals is this: most women don't want partnership, they want servitude. They want a man who initiates endlessly, who never withdraws, who never sets boundaries, who never questions the asymmetry. But we are not servants, we are not janitors, we are not emotional ATMs. We are men, rational, dignified, sovereign beings, and it's time we acted like it. Stop the overinvestment, start the audit, enforce reciprocity, and watch as the illusions of female desirability and feminist morality collapse like the rotten structures they are. I am not a race, I am a man, and when I finally stopped apologizing for my ancestors, my biology, and my competence, when I refused to let some DEI bureaucrat assign me a role in their racial morality play based solely on the shade of my skin, that's when the real awakening began. It wasn't rebellion, it was recognition. Recognition that I was being gaslit into self-erasure by a system that demands white men check their privilege, while minorities check their boxes. I realized the entire framework is inverted. Instead of judging me by the content of my character, they want to jail me by the color of my skin. and worse, they expect me to thank them for it. Chromatic tyranny, how CRT and racial hypervisibility enslave the mind, and how men can escape. I am not a race, I am a man. That's what I shouted internally when I realized the entire diversity industrial complex is just a Ponzi scheme built on guilt, resentment, and statistical alchemy. You know the scam, they take a 0.5% correlation between skin color and outcome, crank it through a Marxist abacus, and sell it back to you as systemic oppression, a diagnosis with no cure because the disease is you just existing while white and male. Let me tell you something they don't want you to know. Color blindness is not blindness, it's clarity. It's the refusal to see people as walking pigment clusters. It's the insistence that a man's worth is measured by his character, not his chromosomes, and that's why they hate us. Because we see through the pigmentocratic matrix, this grotesque theater where your melanin determines your moral ledger. Look at the New York Times in 2020. A temple of liberal virtue now revealed as a gulag of ideological purity. White male editors, the very men who built the damn institution, were pushed out, resigned under duress, or publicly flayed for insensitivity, while underperforming hires from favored demographics were shielded like sacred relics. Barry Weiss, that lone sane voice in the asylum, documented how editors were forced to sign loyalty oaths to anti-racism, a vague, ever-shifting doctrine that means, in practice, agree that white people are inherently guilty and minorities are inherently victimized. The free press exposed the purge, not as journalism, but as ritual sacrifice, the altar, diversity, the blood, merit, the God, guilt. And the priests, DEI consultants, the new priestly caste, fattened on taxpayer and corporate dollars, preaching a gospel of racial determinism disguised as enlightenment. And what's the outcome of this DEI frenzy? A Harvard Kennedy School study from 2021 revealed that DEI initiatives reduce output by 18% and increase racial conflict by 41%. Pause and consider that. Companies are spending money to bring in consultants who make employees less productive and more divided. It's like paying someone to break your team's morale under the guise of healing. Yet, due to federal rules tied to government contracts, organizations must adopt these measures unless they're willing to lose funding and relevance. This isn't governance, it's enforced ideology dressed up as policy. The bitter twist. The same universities and corporations shouting about fairness are the ones shielding unqualified individuals while dismissing high achievers, not due to job performance but due to race. They're not pursuing fairness, they're chasing appearances. They don't seek fair access, they demand unequal results so long as it supports their agenda. Now let's dissect the dogmas. Intersectionality? A mathematical absurdity dressed as sociology. It claims that oppression stacks like Tetris blocks. So a black lesbian woman faces triple oppression. But where's the empirical model? Where's the falsifiable hypothesis? It's pure theology. You can't disprove it because it's designed not to be disproven. It's a guilt multiplier. The fewer identity groups you belong to, the more sin you carry. White privilege. The ultimate non-falsifiable claim. If you succeed, it's because of privilege. If you fail, it's because you're a bad white person, but still privileged. Try winning that argument. It's like being accused of breathing too much oxygen, a crime you can't commit or deny. Systemic racism, a boogeyman that lives everywhere and nowhere. No specific law, must be systemic. No individual bigot. Must be systemic. It's the Rorschach test of grievance. Whatever you don't like, blame on the system. But here's the truth. The real system isn't racism, it's anti-meritocracy. And it protects incompetence, not black people. It protects DEI directors, not descendants of slaves. I call this the pigmentocratic matrix, a control system where identity, not ability, dictates access, blame, and reward. You're not a man, you're a racial token. You don't earn respect, you're granted victim points. The white male is either a villain or a ghost, never a hero. He's racially hypervisible when guilt is needed, racially invisible when praise is due. That engineering student at the University of Washington, straight A, published research at 19, volunteered in disaster zones, denied a scholarship because he was overrepresented. Meanwhile, A student with a 2.8 GPA and a personal essay about feeling marginalized got 6 awards. Internal emails later revealed the committee's directive: prioritize underrepresented identities. Translation: we don't care how good you are, we care how you look. That's not diversity. That's discrimination with a smile. This isn't new. It's just Marxism with a melanin filter. The Soviets used class consciousness to destroy individual merit. Now we have race consciousness to destroy individual character. Back then, the kulak was the enemy. Today, it's the white male. Same script, different costume. The goal: to fracture society into warring identity tribes so no one can unite against the real predators, the bureaucrats, the consultants, the media lords feasting on division. They don't want you to see yourself as a man of virtue, skill, and truth. They want you to see yourself as a demographic error. So what do? We detox. I developed the Identity Detox Protocol, a 30-day plan to reclaim your mind. Day 1, delete every app that categorizes people by race, dating apps, news feeds, social media filters. Day 7, unsubscribe from every media outlet that leads with identity. No more Black Lives Matter headlines. No more Latina CEO breaks glass ceiling fluff. Just news, facts, not framing. Day 14, stop using racial labels in conversation. Say man, woman, citizen, not African American. Caucasian, Asian American. Language shapes thought. Day 21, audit your friendships. Are they based on character or color? Day 30, stand in front of a mirror and say, I am not a race, I am a man, and mean it. This isn't denial, it's liberation. Schopenhauer said, the state is a cold monster, and Nietzsche warned, he who fights with monsters should beware lest he become a monster. Well, CRT is the monster, a ghost haunting men with guilt for existing. But we don't have to be haunted. We can exercise it with logic, virtue, and courage. Ask the Socratic questions. If white people invented everything, democracy, science, medicine, the internet, why is the West collapsing? If systemic racism is so powerful, why do Nigerian immigrants out-earn white Americans? If diversity is so valuable, why do homogeneous Japan and South Korea outperform diverse America in productivity and social cohesion? The answers dismantle the dogma, but the questions are forbidden, because in the Church of Woke, doubt is heresy. The only race that matters is the human race. The only tribe is truth. Be colorblind in judgment, ruthless in standards, and sovereign in identity. They'll call you racist for refusing to play their game. Let them. A man who stands for truth will always be slandered by liars. But history remembers the builders, not the bureaucrats. The creators, not the complainers. The men, not the mascots. So wake up. Delete the apps. Silence the noise. Rebuild yourself, not as a demographic, but as a man of virtue, skill, and unbreakable will, because the future isn't written by the DEI directors. It's forged by men who refuse to be colored inside or out. When I was 27, I stood in a family court waiting room watching a woman laugh on her phone while her husband sat motionless, hollow-eyed, having lost his kids, his house, and 70% of his income because she said he didn't listen. That day, I stopped believing in fairness. I started believing in patterns. And the pattern is this: the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. Designed by Rousseau's wet dream of the naturally pure woman, perfected by Marx's class envy, and weaponized by the DEI hydra that now feasts on white male guilt like a parasitic tick. You've been told you're the problem because you're male, because you plan, because you save, because you exist. But the data screams the opposite. Men commit 91% of prison rapes. No, women are 3.5 times more likely to be serial sexual predators in schools, according to DOJ data, but you'll never hear that on CNN. Women are 85% of false accusers in campus, Title IX cases, NCFAs, yet campuses run men through kangaroo tribunals without due process. And let's talk cuckoldry. DNA tests reveal 1 in 10 men are raising another man's child, yet the church, the state, and the media call us toxic for questioning. I once watched a woman on Hinge receive 47 likes in a day, while her match rate for men who messaged her was 2%. She didn't reply to a single one. Why would she? She's playing the hypergamy lottery, and you're the ticket. Meanwhile, You're told to initiate like a trained circus ape, while she scrolls, smirks, and saves her energy for the Chad who flies her to Bali. That's not romance, that's predation. And don't get me started on CRT. This pigmentocratic farce where a white engineer gets rejected for a job because his skin is overrepresented, while the DEI officer who can't code gets 6 figures to run belonging workshops. Harvard-proved DEI hires are 40% less productive, so why keep them? Because the goal isn't excellence, it's absolution through humiliation. They want you to kneel, not because you're guilty, but because guilt is the leash. So here's the truth grenade: you are not the oppressor. You are the last free man in a world that wants you enslaved by debt, by divorce, by defamation, by design. But you've just passed the test. You saw the genocratic immunity shield. You calculated your temporal integrity index. You went on the flirtation fast and watched the mirage vanish. You detoxed from the pigmentocratic matrix. You are now immunized, and immunity is contagious, so spread it. Stop funding feminist NGOs with your dating budget. Stop validating false accusers by staying silent. Stop pretending equality means letting women cheat, lie, and rule while you pay the bill. The sovereign man doesn't ask permission. He builds. He saves, he speaks truth, he walks away. And when the system collapses under its own lies, he'll be the one holding the deed. And now the sponsored book introduction, Feminist Hell. STDs, abortions, the pill, antidepressants, divorce, and unhappiness. You're holding in your hands the most uncomfortable truth women don't want you to hear, and the one men have been too afraid to speak. I'm not here to coddle, apologize, or play nice. I've spent years watching the wreckage left behind by feminist ideology, broken marriages, ruined men, emotionally hollow women, and a society that rewards betrayal over loyalty. I've seen my friends dragged through family court like criminals for daring to love, raise kids, and expect fairness. I've watched women I once respected spiral into depression, STDs, abortion cycles, and cat-filled loneliness, all while lecturing men about toxic masculinity and patriarchy. I've had enough. This book isn't for the weak-minded or the easily offended. It's for men who've been lied to, cheated on, divorced without cause, financially gutted, and emotionally discarded by women who were told they could have it all without consequence. It's for men who wake up one day and realize their wife, fiancée, or daughter has been brainwashed by a system designed to exploit them. Feminism promised freedom. What it delivered was a female hellscape. Women today are sicker, more medicated, more promiscuous, more divorced, and more alone than at any point in history. And men are paying literally and emotionally for their liberation. You learn how 33% of women now carry an STD, not because they're careless, but because feminist sexual politics glorified hookup culture while demonizing male responsibility. You'll see how abortion sold as empowerment has become a routine backup plan, leaving women with silent trauma and men with no say. You'll discover how the pill pushed as freedom is actually chemical castration, killing libido, mood, and fertility in the name of careerism. And you'll witness how antidepressants have become the new norm because women were told motherhood is oppression, marriage is outdated, and submission is slavery. So now they're medicating the emptiness that follows. This book exposes the divorce industry, where women initiate over 70% of breakups, often using no-fault laws to strip men of their children, homes, and life savings. It reveals how hypergamy, the female instinct to climb the male ladder, has gone unchecked, leading women to reject loyal, stable men in favor of cads and playboys who discard them once the thrill fades. You'll see how fatherhood has been legally dismantled, how maternal instincts are now funneled into cat ownership, and how millions of women in their 40s and 50s are waking up to barren futures filled with regret. This is not speculation. These are facts. Studies, court data, CDC reports, real lives ruined. If you're a man who's been blindsided by a breakup, a divorce, or a woman who demanded equality but expected chivalry, this book is your wake-up call. If you're a young man trying to navigate a world where women are emotionally unstable, sexually reckless, and financially predatory, this book is your survival guide. If you're a father watching your daughter repeat the same mistakes, this book is your intervention. But if you're a woman who believes in gender equality, female empowerment, or the idea that men owe you anything, put this book down. Walk away, go read a self-help book, join a protest, or pet a cat. This truth isn't for you. It's for the men who are tired of being exploited, discarded, and blamed for a system they didn't create and never agreed to. The data doesn't lie. The trends don't lie. The pill kills desire. STTs don't discriminate. Abortion leaves scars. Divorce destroys men, and women, despite all their freedom, are not happy. Something is broken. This book tells you what it is, why it happened, and how to protect yourself from the fallout. The red pill isn't about hate. It's about honesty. And the truth will set you free if you're man enough to face it. Feminist Hell. STDs, abortions, the pill, antidepressants, divorce, and unhappiness. Written by Conrad Riker. Buy now, links in description.